Breaking news just dropped, and Blue Jays fans need to understand what just happened because this is massive. The Toronto Blue Jays just made one of the smartest signings of the entire offseason, and I'm not exaggerating when I say they absolutely robbed the rest of baseball. This is the kind of move that doesn't always make headlines, but wins championships, and we need to break down exactly why this matters so much. Tyler Rogers is coming to Toronto on a 3-year, $37 million deal with a vesting option that could push it to $48 million total. That's roughly $12 to $13 million per year for a reliever who was, in my opinion, the best available arm left on the market. Better than Pete Fairbanks, better than the other names still out there, and honestly, you could argue he's better than some of the relievers already signed this offseason not named Edwin Diaz. Let me explain why this is such a perfect fit. It almost feels like robbery. Tyler Rogers posted a 1.98 ERA last season across 81 appearances and nearly 80 innings. The year before that, a 2.82 ERA. His career ERA sits at 2.76. This isn't a guy who has one good year and falls off a cliff. This is sustained excellence over multiple seasons, which is incredibly rare for relievers. We all know how volatile bullpens can be. Look at what happened with Devin Williams last year, sub 2.00 ERA for years, then suddenly a 4.00 plus season. Rogers doesn't do that. He's consistently excellent year after year. Now here's where it gets interesting. Rogers is a submarine pitcher, throwing from an incredibly low arm angle that makes his fastball look like it's rising. His delivery is unique. His fastball averages 83.5 miles per hour, the slowest in baseball, and yet he completely dominates hitters. How does that work? Because he doesn't try to blow guys away with velocity. He's a contact pitcher who absolutely masters the art of weak contact. Look at his baseball savant page, and it tells the entire story. He's in the 96th percentile for expected ERA. His average exit velocity is in the 99th percentile, meaning hitters barely make solid contact against him. But here's the kicker. He's literally the best pitcher in baseball at limiting walks, limiting barrels, limiting hard contact, and inducing ground balls. Those aren't just good numbers. Those are elite, best in the league numbers. This is where the fit becomes absolutely perfect for Toronto. The Blue Jays have one of the best defensive teams in baseball. They have Ernie Clement and Andres Jimenez, two of the premier defensive infielders in the game. Now you're adding a pitcher who generates ground balls at an elite rate. You're essentially maximizing both his strengths and the team's defensive capabilities. It's synergy in its purest form. But there's an even bigger storyline here that Blue Jays fans will immediately understand. This team's bullpen gave up way too many home runs last season. You could argue that home runs allowed by the bullpen cost them a chance at winning the World Series. The long ball killed them in crucial moments. Guess what Tyler Rogers doesn't do? Give up home runs. He's one of the best in baseball at keeping the ball in the park. That's not a coincidence. It's his profile. Weak contact, ground balls, almost no barrels allowed. You're getting a guy who solves one of the team's biggest problems from last season. Rogers hasn't had an ERA above 360 since 2022. Think about that for a second. For 3 straight years, he's been one of the most reliable relievers in baseball, and nobody's really talking about it because he doesn't throw 100 miles per hour and he doesn't rack up strikeouts. But winning baseball games isn't always about radar gun readings and whiff rates. Sometimes it's about getting weak contact, inducing ground balls, and not walking anybody. Rogers does all 3 better than almost anyone. He throws a sinker-slider combination that keeps hitters off balance despite the low velocity. Hitters know it's coming slowly, but they still can't square him up. That's mastery of his craft. And the durability is another massive factor. Rogers has topped 70 innings pitched in 5 consecutive seasons. He appeared in 29 of 30 games during the shortened 2020 season. Last year, he made 81 appearances. This is a guy who can pitch on back-to-back-to-back days if needed. That's invaluable for a bullpen that needs reliable arms who can handle heavy workloads. Now let's talk about how he fits into the actual bullpen structure. Rogers isn't going to be the closer. He has 19 career saves, and that's not his role. Jeff Hoffman is your closer. Rogers is going to be your 7th or 8th inning guy, someone you can bring in during high-leverage situations when you need weak contact and ground balls. He can give you length if a starter gets knocked out early. He's flexible, durable, and elite at what he does. The matchups this creates are fascinating too. Imagine being an opposing lineup facing Trevor Savage, who has one of the craziest arm angles for a starter in baseball, and then getting hit with Tyler Rogers coming out of the bullpen with a completely different submarine angle. Then you mix in Kevin Gausman, Jeff Hoffman with his devastating splitter, guys like Mason Fluharty and Brendan Little. The variety of looks Toronto can throw at opposing lineups is going to be a nightmare to prepare for. One more thing that makes this signing brilliant. The Mets were reportedly targeting Rogers. Toronto swooped in and got the deal done. That's being aggressive. That's recognizing value and acting on it before someone else does. In a market where elite relievers are flying off the board, getting Rogers at this price is a win. I've seen some people ask why the Blue Jays didn't go out and get a true closer, someone with a track record of shutting doors in the ninth inning. Here's the thing. Jeff Hoffman is capable of closing, but more importantly, modern baseball isn't about rigid bullpen roles anymore. It's about having multiple high-leverage arms you can deploy in the biggest moments. Rogers gives you that flexibility. He can pitch the seventh in a tied game, the eighth protecting a one-run lead, or even come in during the sixth if there's a crucial spot with runners on base. The consistency is what stands out most. Relievers are notoriously volatile. Guys have great years and then fall apart. Rogers has been excellent for years, outperforming his peripherals consistently. Even when his underlying numbers suggest regression might be coming, he just keeps performing. That's not luck. That's skill, command, and understanding how to pitch. For a team that was one win away from the World Series, this is exactly the type of move you need to make. You're not rebuilding. You're not in a wait-and-see mode. You're going for it, and that means adding pieces that make you better in October. Rogers is a guy who thrives in high-pressure situations because his game isn't built on overpowering stuff that can abandon you when the stakes are highest. He lives off command, movement, and inducing weak contact. Those skills don't disappear in big moments. The money is completely reasonable, too. $12 to $13 million per year for a reliever of this caliber is not an overpay. People will see the total and think it's a lot for a bullpen arm, but when you consider what he brings, elite performance, durability, consistency, a specific skill set that addresses team weaknesses, it's actually a bargain. The Blue Jays just made a profit off what other teams are paying for lesser arms. This also signals that Toronto is serious about filling needs and being smart about it. They're not just throwing money at big names. They're identifying specific players who fit what they need and going out and getting them. Rogers addresses the home run problem, the inconsistency problem, and adds a weapon that can be used in multiple ways throughout a game. And here's something else to consider. With Rogers now in the bullpen, you can be more strategic with how you use other arms. You don't have to overextend guys early in games because you're worried about who's available later. Rogers gives you a safety net, a reliable option you can turn to in almost any situation. That takes pressure off everyone else and allows you to manage the bullpen more effectively over the course of a long season. The ground ball rate is going to be huge playing in front of this defense. When you have elite defenders up the middle and you're feeding them ground balls consistently, you're setting yourself up for success. Double plays become more frequent. A weak contact gets turned into outs. It's the kind of thing that might not show up dramatically in box scores, but adds up to wins over the course of a season. I keep coming back to how perfect this fit is. It's not just about getting a good player. It's about getting the right player for what this team needs. The Blue Jays identified a weakness, too many home runs allowed by the bullpen, and found a solution that directly addresses it. That's smart team building. That's how you take a team that's already close and push them over the top. The reaction from people who haven't watched Rogers much might be skepticism. An 83-mile-per-hour fastball and a sub 2.0 ERA, how does that work? But once you watch him pitch, once you see how he manipulates the baseball and keeps hitters off balance, it makes complete sense. Velocity isn't everything. Location, movement, and deception matter just as much, sometimes more. Rogers has mastered those aspects of pitching. This signing also doesn't preclude Toronto from making other moves. They can still pursue Kyle Tucker. They can still address other areas of need. But now they've checked a major box by adding an elite reliever who makes the bullpen significantly better. That's one less question mark heading into next season. The 3-year term is perfect, too. You're not committing to a reliever for 5 or 6 years, which can be risky given how quickly arms can break down. 3 years gives you Rogers through what should be the prime of this competitive window. And if the vesting option kicks in, it means he's been healthy and effective enough to earn it. I genuinely believe this is one of the most underrated signings of the entire offseason. It won't generate the same buzz as a position player signing or a big-name starting pitcher, but 6 months from now, when Tyler Rogers is dominating in high-leverage situations and the Blue Jays bullpen is one of the best in baseball, people will look back at this as the move that made a huge difference. For $12 million per year, you're getting a guy who doesn't walk anyone, doesn't give up home runs, generates weak contact, works deep into games, and has been doing it consistently for years. That's a steal. That's recognizing value where others might not see it and capitalizing on it. The Blue Jays just made a brilliant move. And if this is a sign of how the rest of the offseason is going to go, Toronto fans should be very, very excited about what's coming.